Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Abramson, and I am an art therapist and a yoga therapist living and working in New York. Today, we're going to talk about ways that we can find more relaxation and mindfulness throughout our everyday life for our families, at work, and especially with our children. Things can be very challenging right now, especially living during a pandemic when so many things are unsure. So we're going to look and play together a little bit today to find some more ways that we can find relaxation and mindfulness all together. And I want you to play along with me, join along, read along with the slides. You also all have some handouts that we'll be going through a little bit. And please feel free to ask any questions throughout using your chat box that you should have on your screens. If you have any questions about what I'm talking about, or if you agree or disagree, let me know and we can discuss it after the presentation. And I want to say thank you, and we're all grateful to the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority for making this initiative a reality. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. So we'll get started. So relaxation and mindfulness. And again, those words we'll get to know as we move through today's presentation. So it's okay if those words are a little foreign today or we're not really sure what that means in our own lives. But we'll touch on a lot of different ways that we can start to really incorporate these relaxation tips, mindful activities, and also self-care as a really important part of moving through our lives and being parents, especially during a pandemic. So we'll start actually by doing a centering activity. So if you're at home or wherever you are, just find a comfortable seat. And if it's okay with you, close your eyes for a moment. And if that doesn't feel okay, you can just find a comfortable seat and just listen along. Oftentimes when things become very chaotic, it's hard to really center in and listen and touch in with how you're feeling. So we like to stop and breathe and take a couple moments, especially during these challenging times, to really check in with how your body is feeling. So while you're sitting there, just maybe notice if your shoulders, if you can relax them a little bit more. Notice if you can relax your hands or any gripping in your hands or your feet a little bit. Starting to observe your breath here. Feeling that gentle inhale and exhale. And if it feels comfortable for you, you can always place a hand on the belly to feel that rise and fall of your breath. Just observing how your body is this afternoon. Maybe noticing if your mind begins to race, and see if you can keep drawing yourself back to yourself in this seat, in this moment, trying to find some ability to center and relax here all together. We'll just take a couple more breaths here. Gentle inhales and exhales. You can take a couple all together, taking a nice big inhale and exhale out the mouth. And a couple more like that. Nice big inhale. You can encourage your children to breathe along with you so that you can all be centered. You can all arrive in this place together, letting go of anything that came before this so we can really touch in with how our bodies are feeling today. One more nice big breath here all together. And exhale. So we're going to start by talking about what mindfulness is. So mindfulness is being present with the task in front of you. Mindfulness can look like many different things for every different person throughout your life, throughout the day. It doesn't have to be a strict rule or a strict thing that you need to follow. You can be mindful throughout your everyday life. You can find mindfulness when you're walking, when you're breathing, when you're brushing your teeth. You can find mindfulness when you're playing with your children. When we are mindful, our bodies and minds become laser focused, and we tend to slow down and pay closer attention. Our breathing can begin to slow a little bit. We can feel a little bit more relaxed when we allow ourselves to be more mindful, to be more focused. And when we are more mindful, we become more aware, like you might have seen in that exercise before, of your physical sensations, your mental thoughts, and your emotional fluctuations. So oftentimes it can be really hard to sit with and be mindful in situations, especially with our children sometimes, if things are coming up or there are challenging situations. But we want to try to find ways to be more aware, to be more present with our children, even if those are challenging times. And mindfulness is a practice. We never really arrive. We're really working towards this. So everyone throughout their day is finding more ways that they can be mindful, that they can be aware of what's happening and really stay focused. So if you have any ideas, you can always leave that in the chat about what are some ways in your own life that you can practice mindfulness, or if you have any questions about that. And like I said, mindfulness can look different for all of us. So mindfulness can be folding the laundry. Mindfulness can be playing with our children or building something. You can be mindful when you're cooking dinner or breakfast or lunch. You can find time to be mindful right before bed, just focusing again on how your body's feeling, checking in with yourself, finding that time for self-care to allow yourself to relax more. Mindfulness can be taking a walk outside. It can be taking a walk in the city and really being mindful of the sounds around you, being mindful of the sun shining down or the clouds. You can even be more mindful about the smells around you, which can be kind of funny if you're working with children. You can ask them what it smells like, what you're cooking for dinner, and allow them to really focus and answer those questions and play with them with that. You can ask them about what it tastes like, what you're eating, even maybe closing your eyes as you eat and really focusing on what you're eating, the sensations of that food, that texture. So finding different ways that mindfulness can really come into your everyday life. So like I mentioned before, though, we can start to use our senses a little bit more to be mindful. So we can listen more consciously, can really focus as caretakers and social workers, as teachers, as parents, to really listen when our children, when our support staff are listening and talking to us, so that we can be there to support them. We can be fully present with them. You can be more mindful, like I said, when you're folding the laundry or when you're washing dishes, really feeling the water so your mind isn't running off to something else. You can stay more focused with what you're working on, the task in front of you. Can be more mindful all the things we see every day around us, inside our houses and out. Really focusing and listening and seeing all those colors and really enjoying those colors, those textures, everything you see. So keep bringing your attention back to the present moment. We can be more mindful when we smell things, when we taste things. A lot of fun activities you can do with your children, like I mentioned, can be around snack time or around meals, and really noticing what your child or who you're working with, what senses that they really enjoy and what they focus on more. So make that a bigger part of the mindfulness activity or play activity. Really asking them what they feel if they are a more tactile child, and really playing up to their strengths and really learning from your children here. We want to pay close attention and try to multitask less, which will allow us to be more mindful. Even though I know we can all be so busy with so many things to do, it's really important to try a few times throughout the day or the week to really focus on what we're working on so we can give it our full attention. We can become, like I said, more aware of our surroundings, even if that means we're in a busy city and there are lots of cars or sounds or construction. Becoming more aware of our surroundings allows us to be mindful. And like I said earlier as well, you're going to work to become a more conscious listener with your children, with your family, at your place of worship, at your schools, at your work, so we can really be present with the people around us. And so you've heard a couple ways that we can be really mindful in all these different areas of our lives. So if you have any thoughts so far, you can always leave that in the chat box about other ways that you can be more mindful in your life. Or maybe you have a question about this. We'll go over all those at the end during the question and answer period. Again, how can we create more mindful moments in our everyday? So you can try a seated breathing activity like we did at the beginning of the session. These can be as short as 1 minute long, or they can be longer. We want to always be aware of our own limitations as well as our children's limitations. So finding something that works for them, finding something that's playful for them is very important. We can also try a walking or a movement or a mindful activity, which we'll do one of these a little later on in the session today. But these, again, we want to find what is our children's strength, what our strengths are, and really build upon that. So how can we be more mindful? If our children love to run around, how can we be more mindful when we run around? Can we ask them what the carpet feels like under their feet? Can we ask them what the temperature of the wind blowing by feels like? So try to be creative and playful in finding these mindful activities throughout your daily life. Another one is a mandala printout or some type of drawing, and you have one of these in your handout. And these can be really, really great for stress reduction. So we focus in on something at hand. We focus in on this art activity. And it can be whatever you want if you don't like to color in, or your children don't like to color in some type of mandala or different drawing like that. You can find something that works for you. There's also an example in your handouts of one that you can do 3D. So maybe that's a playful activity. You have your children grab a couple things around the house and you're mindful in creating an art piece on the ground all together. We want to make it more fun, make it less rigid, and have fun and play and make these things more mindful and exciting. So the benefits of mindfulness are very similar to what we'll talk about a little later with self-care and relaxation. But the benefits of mindfulness include reducing stress, which we all can do more of. We live in a very, very stressful time right now, so it's important to find ways that can reduce stress for us. It can improve our sleep quality. It can allow us to concentrate more, not only on the task that you're working on, but you can also concentrate more on everything that's going on around you because you have that skill, you have that ability to start learning to be more mindful. Like I said, it can increase your relaxation. It can help to improve your mood and help with mood swings, especially with young children when there are so many uncertainties. We're always jumping around and there's so much going on. So finding ways to really focus, stop, relax, take a few breaths, and check in with your children, check in with your own body to really see how we're doing. And if there are ways that we can improve, if there are ways that we can help find a little bit more peace throughout our day. These are really, really important benefits of mindfulness. So self-care is another really, really important part of being mindful throughout our day-to-day, as well as finding more relaxation. It's very important for you to take time for self-care. It is not a selfish thing to do. And self-care, just like mindfulness, can look really, really different for all of us. It might look, we'll talk about some other ways that it could look for you. And there are, again, some journal prompts and things like that in your handouts that you can look at. But you really need to make the time to care for yourself, especially now when you're a parent and you're busy and you're working really hard, or you're a teacher or a caretaker, we all need to be more present with our families, with our clients, with our friends. And by doing that and being more present with them, we can find more time for self-care. We can take care of ourselves a little bit more. And remembering that the same with mindfulness, self-care can look very, very different for all of us. So it might look really different for you right now in your life. It might look really different in a couple weeks for you. So finding what works best for you, and it takes time. And again, what does self-care and relaxation look like? It can look like using your hands to be playful and build something. It can look like going for a walk outside, or even a walk in your own house. Self-care can look like building something or making something if you're artistic and you like to create or sew or weave or things like that. Self-care can be listening to your favorite music or reading your favorite book, taking that time to really care for yourself, build yourself up. It's really important as parents during a pandemic especially to find time, even if it's a very, very little bit of time, to care for yourself. To do something for yourself is very, very important. So now we're going to do a gentle stretch and release. And I would ask you to follow along if you'd like. And remember that breathing in the power of an inhale and an exhale can be amazing and really change your mood, change and reduce your stress. It can help you calm down. It can help you relax in many different situations. Also remember though, when you're working with children or even yourself, knowing your own limits, knowing if something is hurting you and you don't want to push it too far, really listening to how your body's feeling. You always want to start a little slow and maybe build up, or maybe find a video or something to listen to follow along with. But for now, we're going to do it all together. So I'm going to stop sharing my video and you can all see me here now. So we're gonna start by just taking a nice big inhale, lifting our shoulders up towards our ears, and exhale, let them go. Inhale, lift our shoulders up. Exhale, let them go. One more, inhale, lifting up. And exhale, let them go. And then we're gonna work with our neck a little bit. So just looking up towards the sky or the ceiling. And then looking down towards the ground. Again, taking your time, not forcing anything, looking up towards the sky again, and looking down towards the ground. Coming all the way back up, let's look over our shoulder, all the way over to the side, and back to center, and over our other shoulder. We can help our children when we're doing this. We can help our family. We can be the leaders and show each other how to find this time to be mindful, to find movement in our everyday, to find play, to bring ourselves a little less stress, a little bit more relaxation, and a little bit of fun throughout our everyday. So let's look over our shoulder again. And then over to the other side. And we'll make a little bit of a bigger movement. So inhale, reach your arms up towards the sky. And exhale, let them go. Inhale, reach them up. Exhale, let them go. Inhale, reach them up. Exhale, let them go. And then we'll take our hands out in front of us, wiggle our fingers, play along with our children here. Inhale, reach the hands wide, open up the hands. Exhale, let them go. Inhale, open up nice and wide. And exhale, let them go. One more time, inhale, open up. And exhale, let them go. And you can find different movements here if you want to be more active here. We can do inhale fast and exhale down. Inhale up and exhale down. We can reach up and over to the side to get a nice side stretch with me here. Very good. And come up and over to the other side. Good. Coming all the way back to center. So we're always doing these different movements. We're finding what works best for ourselves. And these different movements, we're trying to link them to our breath. We're trying to notice how our body's feeling. But if nothing else, at least you're taking a little time throughout the day to move your shoulders, to move your hands, to stretch your neck, to find a little bit more space, even though I know it can feel really intense and there's so much going on, but we really want to try to find ways that we can be creative, that we can work with our children, we can find what's best for our children, especially our children with special needs, and find ways to support them as well as supporting ourselves throughout everyday life as well as during a pandemic. So we'll move into one more exercise here, and I'm going to share my screen again so people can see. Hold on a second. We lost our place. Of course, being mindful and relaxed, that's okay. So another breathing exercise here that I'm going to share with you, and I think this one's a little easier to see it on the screen. So it's a simple square breathing technique. And again, we want to be aware, we never want to hold our breath too tensely. I know it says hold here, but we're going to try to be relaxed as we do this. We don't want to force anything. We don't want to hurt ourselves, of course. We want to take it slow. But if you'd like to follow along, and this chart in front of you could be very helpful. So we'll take a big inhale for 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll pause and we'll rest. So sometimes finding a breathing and a counting way to do our breath work and our mindful activities can be really, really helpful and important because it's a little bit more concrete. It's allowing us to really focus on our breath, to really be aware of our breath. And maybe if we're really tense or things are a little too much right now, maybe something like this isn't good, or maybe for you this does work. So again, we're trying to find different ways to be mindful, to find breathing activities, to find movement activities, to find quiet or journaling or art activities that can allow you to find a little bit more peace and a little bit more mindfulness. So now that you tried this once, we're going to try it all together a couple more times. And feel free to follow along, or you can just listen if you'd rather do that. So we want to again find our comfortable seat, or even if we're standing. And these breathing exercises can be really, really great, especially if we're in a crowded place or we're starting to feel overwhelmed, but we don't maybe have the ability to start stretching or reach our hands up or be silly and dance. We can find other ways that can be a little bit more reserved, can be a little quieter, to just touch back in with ourselves. And this square breathing is a really, really great way to do that. So we'll try it all together here. So we'll take a nice big inhale for 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4. And again, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause. And that rhythm can be different for you, can be different for your children, depending on how you are, how you're feeling, what your abilities are in that moment. So really noticing what is best for you, what is best for your family, what is best for your children. So how can we incorporate self-care into our lives a little bit more? We really need to find time for ourselves. And like we talked about earlier, self-care is not being selfish. You need to care for yourself so that you can be a parent, that you can be a caretaker for your children. Even if it's the smallest amount of time, finding time to be with yourself, to care for yourself is very, very important. It's important to also remember to be kind and flexible with yourself. Just like you play with your children and you forgive your children and your family, you have to forgive yourself if you're not able to be present with yourself or find self-care every day. If you made a strict schedule, be flexible, let it be enjoyable. Find different things that work best for you. So that might look different. Again, like I said, one day it might look like a little self-care is making your favorite cup of tea and getting to sit and have a cup of tea. On another day, you might find that self-care comes in the form of being able to take a walk outside with your children. Or maybe self-care for you is being able to play with your kids before bed. You can find different ways that work for you. And again, it's important to maybe try to make it every day or every week, but be flexible. We want to try to encourage these healthy habits. Just as we encourage healthy habits in our children and for our clients, for our students, we want to find ways to encourage those healthy habits for ourselves. And in your handouts, you have something about journaling. Journaling can be very, very helpful for self-care, as well as for mindfulness, for relaxation. It can reduce stress. It can allow you to really ask yourself how you're doing. Check in and see what's going well. See maybe what needs improvement. This journaling or these times to really sit with yourself are really important. It's also good to remember that your journal is only for you. You don't have to share it with anyone. The same as if your child makes a journal, maybe you can journal together or find creative ways to not only do writing, but maybe you're doing artwork together, or maybe you're playing, or you're doing movement, or you're making puppets together. Finding ways that you can express yourselves with your family is very, very important. And just keeping in mind that self-care, relaxation, and mindfulness, they're like muscles. So we need to train them. We need to work and find ways for healthy habits to be a part of our everyday life. And just like we spoke about before, the benefits of mindfulness, the benefits of self-care are similar in that they will increase positive thinking. They will increase this positive self-talk or self-confidence, which we want all our children to have. We want them to be, work on their own, think on their own, learn and ask questions. So we want to be inquisitive and playful also. We want to find time to care for ourselves and give back to ourselves so that we can be more open, more flexible, more able to be present with our children. Finding time for self-care can also make us less susceptible to stress and anxiety. It can reduce feelings of depression. It can reduce feelings of isolation if we really check in with ourselves and find out how we're doing. And maybe we need more support. Maybe we need to ask our family, or we need to find support groups or reach out to other people that maybe are going through what we're going. It's really important to take that time to find out what you need, and so that you can then ask for help, or you can find ways to change the situation or help yourself, support yourself. And again, like I said, self-care, just like mindfulness, it allows us to be more present. So we want to be present. We want to be our best selves with our children, with our students, with our clients. We want to be able to support them with everything they're going through. But to be able to support them, we need to support ourselves first, even again, if it's in the smallest possible way. We talked a little bit about this, and I'd love to hear if you guys have any questions to go through those after, but relaxation and mindful activities for the whole family. Like we did earlier, you can stretch together, you can do different movements, you can put on music and move together or dance together. You can take walks together, even if it's just in your house and trying to notice or hear or see things more. So pay closer attention to what's happening. Will allow everyone to have a good time, maybe a couple laughs, and you'll also be able to be a little bit more mindful, a little bit more focused on what's happening. We want to learn to help each other more with tasks and play with each other, which can be a really, really beneficial way to support our children and support ourselves. I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I love this one, to really taste what you're eating. So if you're cooking something, can you really focus in on the smells of the food? Can you really focus in on the taste or the textures? And make that playful and fun for your family as well. Involve your children in that. And so if you have any other activities or thoughts, if you have a question about an activity you're already doing, leave that in the chat box so we can talk about that later. And we want to remember to support one another and try to remain present with each other. that we're all learning, that this is hard for all of us. So we want to support each other. Just as we support our children, we want to support and care for our families, especially in really challenging times. So just to talk a little bit here before we, finish up and we get to talk a little bit more about some questions that you might have. So mindfulness and relaxation, especially during chaotic times, can feel extremely overwhelming. And it's important that we start to practice these different tools and techniques before things get chaotic, so that we kind of know what works for us. We know that taking a moment to breathe or ground our feet down really helps us. So we want to really work to stay rooted and grounded, to really be aware of how our body is feeling in that moment during chaotic times. It's important to remember to take a few deep breaths if you can. If you're unsure of the situation or overwhelmed, you can always ask for clarity or help. And if you're the person who maybe is in charge, or you are the parent in the situation or the caretaker, you can help the person in need if someone is feeling overwhelmed. See if you can help them and provide a little bit more support for them. We also remember we want to care for ourselves, find time for self-care. And after a situation, even however long a chaotic or intense situation is, we want to try to find time to release and relax after. It's very important. And there are some steps here that I've listed to deal with a difficult emotional situation or difficult situations, that we can deal with them mindfully in a little bit more of a mindful way. So we want to first become aware of the emotion or challenging situation. We want to stay mindful and begin to try to understand the emotion or situation. So we don't want to label it something negative, but we want to identify and figure out what the emotion is. So maybe understanding that this is anger, or this is anxiety, or why my child is so upset, starting to understand what's going on a little bit more, being a little bit more present. We want to remember to not deny our emotional responses for ourselves or for our children. And we're working to try to accept this. We're working to try to accept our children where they are, how they're feeling today. We want to try to understand that these emotions will pass. Hard situations are fluid, that things can change, and that if we become more relaxed or more mindful in certain situations, that can help us remember that they will pass. And then we want to always remember to ask ourselves kind of what happened, reflect upon it. Maybe that's a good thing for you to journal about or talk to your support networks about kind of why did I become frustrated or fearful or upset. And then we want to try to work to relax the need to control our emotions. So we want to be flexible, we want to be playful, we want to know that these things will come and go. And just to keep in mind that relaxation and mindfulness, again, is a journey. Maybe you're hearing about some of these things for the first time, but we're going to find ways that you can use them more with your family, and you want to try until something works. Find what works best for you, find what works best for your family. You don't need to do any of the things I suggested, or you can try all of them and see if you feel more relaxed. If maybe there's a type of music you really enjoy, and that can help you be more relaxed and work, better with your family and be more present. So we want to find what works best for ourselves, find what works best for our families, and remember that you and your children and your family, you deserve to have more relaxation during your day. Even during such challenging times like now, we can be more present. We can be better parents. We can work to be more relaxed and be more mindful. So that's all I have for you guys today. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can all see me and see if we have any questions. If not, I can go over some questions that are common ones that I get asked a lot when I do talks like this. We can see. So we don't have any questions yet, so I'll just give a little bit more information. And if you agree or disagree kind of with what I'm saying, or you're confused, please feel free to ask. This is a learning experience for all of us. And maybe the things I mentioned are not how your family enjoys to be together or to relax or to find time. to be with one another. So please feel free to ask any questions, like I said, or if you agree or disagree with what we're talking about here. So some common things that I often will get asked is that, is it wrong to take time for myself when I am needed at home and I am needed with my children? And I'd like to say that it's never wrong, to take care of yourself. We want to, of course, be aware of who is with our children or who is, helping out at home or helping out in a classroom. So we want to, not just walk away from a situation, of course, but we want to find times, even if they're really, really small, ways that we can be more helpful, to ourselves, so we can be more helpful to our loved ones and our family that might need us in that moment. And remember again that you can find really simple ways, so really small things. It can be that you're feeling like you need a little bit of time for yourself and you need a little self-care or relaxation. And maybe that's just as you're cooking dinner, you're really noticing your feet rooted. You're really noticing if your shoulders are relaxing a little bit more. You're noticing if your forehead is scrunched. You can notice if maybe you're stirring something, soup or something, and is your hand really clenched? Does this ever happen to any of you at home, that you kind of notice that you're feeling a little challenged here, you're feeling a little tense, and you want to find more ways to relax? So start with those small things. Those are really important ways to find more self-care. So what are some other questions that I often get here? Let me look through. I listed a couple. So remembering that, our breathing activities, our movement activities, are those dangerous to do? And we really want to, be aware of our body's limits, of course. We never want to do anything to hurt ourselves or to hurt our children or to hurt our family. So we really want to pay attention to what is best for ourselves in that moment. Really be aware of that. So they're not dangerous, any of these breathing or movement activities, but you do want to be aware, because of course I'm not there, I'm not watching you, I'm not in your homes. You might not have someone there to help you. So you can find ways that, start slow, I would say. Maybe find something, a book or something that you can follow along with if that's more helpful for you. Find ways that you can start really slow. I'm curious if anyone out there listening, if anyone does any of these, breathing exercises with their children ever, or if they find fun ways to be more mindful or be more present with their kids. If anyone likes to, play or do stories before bed. In some of my later webinars that I'm going to be doing in November, we're going to talk a little bit about more like how you can do yoga or movement or different types of things and activities to play and be present with our kids a little bit more throughout the day. So what are some other questions? Let's see. Oftentimes people ask if there's certain music, and I would say whatever music is best for you, whatever music you like most. Maybe your family has a favorite type of music or song, or maybe you want to make music together. That can always be really fun. But those type of activities, again, can be really playful, can be really exciting and enjoyable, and can allow you to be present and mindful. I hope, if nothing else from this webinar, that you learn that defining mindfulness and defining self-care and relaxation can look extremely different for everyone. So it might look really different for me or for you. It might look really different for you and for your children. We can find different ways to be more mindful. And that doesn't necessarily mean such a big thing that I think oftentimes people think it means. So again, oftentimes people wonder if there's different ways that you can settle your household down, maybe before dinner or before bed. And that's a really great time to find ways to relax, to enjoy each other's company. But oftentimes we can be really hectic, or our kids can be super energetic, and we have to find kind of ways to calm them down, ways to start to bring them down into this, sleepier state that we want them to be in. So you can start with maybe some type of breathing and movement activity could be really helpful. A lot of times parents will ask me, if my kid is moving and jumping around all over the place, how am I going to get them to calm down? How am I going to, you don't want to go from your child running around to trying to get them to sit down. You want to start where they're at. So maybe they're moving, so maybe you do some movements with them. Maybe you do some breathing things with them, or some repetitive things, or passing a ball back and forth, things like that. You can start a little bit more active to then start to build a little bit more mindfulness, a little bit more relaxation for them. And that can, start to slow them down again. Maybe there's music that they like. Maybe they really enjoy coloring, or they really enjoy, like I said, playing with a ball or interacting with their other siblings. So you can find kind of ways that you can work together with them, work with your children, find what's best for them. But that's what I really would suggest, that especially, or if they've, your children have had a really intense day at school or just out or just at home, meeting them where they're at. So like we talked about in the slides, that the different steps you can take dealing with being more mindful with a difficult situation. So we never want to say that our children's feelings or our feelings are not correct. We never want to say that, they don't have a right to feel what they're feeling. We want to acknowledge how they're feeling and be able to support them in that, and that can be really challenging as a parent. So there's often a lot of support systems you can ask. You can ask other family members, you can ask different groups around you to find ways that can support you if you're finding it hard to, support your children and help them calm down after these hard situations. But I would say really to try to meet them where they're at is really important. We don't want to, like I said, if our children are running around and acting with so much energy, we don't want to just say, sit down because we're going to be mindful now. We don't want to do that. We want to meet them where they are. We want to maybe play with them a little bit, do some active movements, laugh and have a good time, and then slowly start to make the movements a little quieter. Maybe the music gets quieter. Maybe just you get a little quieter, so they kind of start to respond and notice that they're starting to wind down, and that can be a really helpful thing. And again, like I mentioned in some of my other webinars that I'm going to be leading in November, we'll talk about, how yoga and relaxation activities and yoga stories can be really helpful with your kids, and how you can play with them and find different ways to explore different emotions for them to share about their days, for you to share about your days. So it's not, again, self-care, of course. You need to come prepared to do the work yourself and come prepared to be present with your children. Let's see, what about? Curious if anyone's having any of these issues at home. Feel free to write if you agree or disagree, or if you have any specific questions. I'm very happy to answer. Let's see though if I have any others over here. So oftentimes, a lot of times from parents, I'll hear, well, I don't have 30 minutes or 20 minutes to sit and be mindful or, be relaxed because I'm so busy. And that's true. We're very, very busy. There's no denying that. And I'm not saying that you need to sit for 30 minutes or, even sit for 20 minutes. Don't even need to sit at all. You can just be a little bit more aware of your surroundings, a little bit more aware of your body. So like I mentioned earlier, if while we're doing a task or we're, on the phone with someone, can we just be a little bit more aware of the muscles in our face if we're, holding our jaw tightly? Can we be a little bit more aware of our feet and where our feet are? Are our feet making contact with the ground, and how does that feel? Is the ground soft? Is it hard? Really being aware of those things. Are you sitting right now on the floor, holding your children? Can you feel what that feels like? What does that feel like to have your kids sitting in your lap, or squirming around or holding a newborn baby? Really noticing how your body is feeling and asking those questions so your body can become a little bit more aware. Let's see what else. a lot of other times people have asked me again about, is it wrong to take time for ourselves? And it's never wrong. Like I said earlier, that's a question I get a lot, how could I even imagine to take time for myself? And, we need to take time for ourselves to build ourselves up so that we can care for the people we love around us. And if nothing else, I hope you remember just that it can be really short. It can be a very small amount of time. It can be playful, it can be fun. You can find a way to make journaling really enjoyable for yourself. You can find a way to make doing the laundry or folding the laundry really enjoyable. Maybe make it a game with your kids. And that's something that you're being mindful as a family, that you're being aware of the task you're working on, which can be so hard. I completely know. And believe me, we are all working at it. It is not a simple thing by any means. If anything, it's one of the hardest things. That's why we need to do it. That's why we need to train ourselves for these healthy habits. Find ways that we can really be more present. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things in life, probably, to be really aware of how it feels to be inside of our bodies, to be present with ourselves. And especially with our children, when they could have had a really hard day, or we could have had a really hard day. And it's hard to sit with uncomfortable emotions and hard situations. So finding, the ability to, like we said, not focus on the negative, not focus on labeling the situation as bad, but trying to be a little bit more open to that situation might change, or what are the positives that could come out of this situation. Finding that time to really reflect, again, is so important. And I really hope everyone at home takes the time to maybe look at some of those journaling prompts, or if you have any questions now about any journaling prompts, we can go over that. What are some other ones? A really fun thing to do, which again, I'll get into with the other webinars that I'm going to go into, but doing like body scans, they're called, with our children. So we can ask our kids to, lay down or stand up, whatever feels best for them. And again, you can do this with your kids, or you can do it for yourself. So we can try one right now. If everyone at home, if you're seated or if you're standing or if you're laying down. So just start to notice how your body's feeling. Maybe notice, are your toes touching each other? Maybe notice, are your feet touching each other? And oftentimes, you can have your kids yell out if they are or not, yes or no, or how it feels. Are your knees bent? So noticing how your knees are feeling. What about your elbows? What are your elbows doing right now? Are your elbows relaxed? Are they hanging down by the side of your body? Are they bent? Noticing how the back of your body feels. So if you're laying down, is your low back and your upper back, is it making contact with the ground? Is the ground hard, or are you laying on something soft if you're laying down? And then beginning to notice how your belly is feeling. So if it's before dinner, maybe is your belly rumbling, or is your belly growling? Are you hungry? If you're nervous about something, is your belly like in knots and all tight up? Is your belly relaxed? What's your belly saying to you right now can be a fun conversation to have with your children. And again, doing these types of body scans can allow you and your children to really touch into how you're feeling in this moment. And it'll change every single day. So you can ask if you're, how is everyone's hands feeling? If you're about to do something that you're nervous, are your palms all sweaty? Are your hands itchy? What does it feel if you can spread your hands out even wider, Or are your hands, sitting on your lap and that's all they're doing? They don't hurt or anything. Starting to notice maybe how your head feels. If you're laying down, does that feel nice to have the weight of your head relaxing? If you're sitting up in a chair like me, can you notice, is your head tilted to the side maybe? Is our head maybe really far forward? Does our neck feel tired from holding up our head? We can start to wonder maybe how the clothing we're wearing, how that feels on our body. So doing these really fun and playful body scans can be a really great way for you to connect with your children, first off, and also find ways to be more mindful and be more present, because we're really going through the body and asking how we're doing. Which, how often are any of you, doing that? I don't do that often. It's a really hard thing to remember to do, to really, you go to a doctor and you ask, how I'm feeling, how my health is, but we really want to be able to do that on our own a little bit more and check in with how we're doing and find ways to help ourselves if we can. So that type of example of a body scan could be a really great way to, maybe before bed with your children, or maybe even for yourself before bed, just kind of go through and check in and say, I wonder if I could relax my shoulders a little bit more. Or, wow, my toes really hurt. How come my toes hurt so much? Or my nose is so itchy right now. I wonder why. So we're really becoming more present with ourselves. And if we're doing this with our children, we're becoming more present, mindful, and even a little bit more relaxed. You can often tend to see that if you're focusing kind of on your body as you move through this body scan, that maybe your breathing slows down a little bit. Maybe you become a little bit more focused, and it's maybe a little harder to make your lists, or figure out all the things you have to do for the next day. Because I know, myself included, I'm always doing that. I'm always figuring out what I need to do next. And so just trying to find ways that we can be a little bit more present, that we can, be present with our children, find a little bit more relaxation, find that time for self-care, for mindfulness, for relaxation is really, really beneficial. And I think we have a little bit more time here. So if anyone has any more questions or any questions, we can go through some of those. And if not, then I'd love to tell you about the other webinars that I'm going to be leading. I have it right here. So on November 4th and on November 11th, I'm going to be doing a yoga and relaxation for children and their parents. So we'll be doing a lot more movement, a lot more games and things like that. So we can really use some of these techniques. If you came to this webinar, you're welcome, of course, to come to the next one. I'd love to have you there. And we can learn kind of different ways that we can be a little bit more playful, and maybe how we can find more relaxation with our children. So similar things like a body scan, or something that we'll talk about on November 11th is this idea of yoga stories and art activities, that we can find ways for our children to express themselves, to share about their day, to share about what went well and what didn't go well. And, using creative ways in these yoga stories, or, acting out these play type movements and things like that, and sounds, and becoming different animals and having fun together, as well as finding some different ways to do some art activities, some like mask making, some different puppets and things like that. So kids can get really involved, and you can, especially when we're all, at home during very challenging times, we want to find a little bit more play and a little bit more enjoyment, in our everyday lives. So I really hope that you all can come to those, and it would be really lovely to see, or to know that you are all out there playing along and really enjoying this. And I really hope that everyone enjoyed today's session. And I think we have a little bit more time if there's any more questions, or if anyone has any ideas, or just would love to, ask a question about if what they're doing at home already is a mindful activity, or if they felt a little bit more relaxed doing a centering activity at the beginning of this, or, maybe I'm curious if anyone at home, if they feel like they have enough time to do any of these activities, or if they feel like, before bed is best, or maybe early in the morning is best, or, maybe right when my children, go to school, or they're with their, other family members, that maybe those are the best times for them. So I'd love to hear if anyone has any thoughts around that. If not, I can keep sharing some more ideas that we can, use throughout our everyday life. And I had one reading that I wanted to read if we have, I think we have a little bit more. So this is about being mindful, which is what we've been talking about all session today. So this says that mindfulness is always mindfulness of something. We can be mindful of our breath, our footsteps, our thoughts, and our actions. Mindfulness requires that we bring all our attention to whatever we are doing, which is a lot of what we spoke about. It can look really different for all of us. So to be mindful is already to be aware. If we can say with awareness, breathing in, I know I have a body. So breathing in, I know that I'm here and present with you. If we already know that, that is already a huge insight. That is already a huge win for us, that we are even present enough to know that. And then it says that because if we know we have a body, we know how to take care of our body, just like we know how to take care of our children. We know how to take care of ourselves once we acknowledge that we need a little bit more care. And then if we want to reduce stress and tension, we need to be aware that we're working so hard, that we are very busy parents and caretakers. So we need to acknowledge that, and that can be very hard. But acknowledging that and starting to work on ways that you can support yourself or ask for help. It also says that with this kind of insight, we can find ways to truly relax. So by knowing that our body needs care, by knowing that we need support, we can find these ways to really support ourselves. And I think that that is really the main thing I want you all to know and take away from this, is that it's very important to be present with your children, to be present with yourself, and find the ways that you can build that support on your own so that you can be more mindful, that you can be more relaxed throughout your day, that you can reduce your stress level a little bit more, that you can increase your sleep, your sleep quality. And that I know that it can seem overwhelming. And I really hope that everyone out there can just know that they can, try different things, find ways to be more aware of how their body is feeling on a day-to-day basis. And I think that that is a really challenging but really beautiful thing. And it can be really fun, like I said, to do and partake in these mindful activities with our family, with our friends, at our schools, at our support centers, at our places of worship, and find just a little bit more ability to be present. And so that's all I have for you today. And I hope everyone enjoyed. You're more than welcome to send in, I think, any other questions after this, and this will all be uploaded and I can answer questions after the fact. If that's more comfortable for anyone, you're welcome to reach out, as well as I hope to see you at any of my future webinars. Again, one was November 4th and the other is on November 11th. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening and try to relax.